Karen, how long has it been since you've been kind of looking into this stuff?
Oh, it's been a while.
It's been a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Now, when you first ventured into this world, the world
Mhm.
of metaphysics and spirituality, was it like overwhelming for you?
Well, I it wasn't that it was overwhelming, but it was surprising how many different modalities, and it's like there keep being more.
Yeah.
That's really well said. There keep being more.
Yes, I that's one of the things I love about you
Exponential. It's
is
exponential there.
how eloquently you put things. Yes. But really the vast amount of information out there can be unbelievably daunting.
That's true.
And we've also talked about how sadly there are a lot of people out there that maybe don't have your best interest in mind.
Mhm.
So when you find a voice out there that really resonates with you, that offers kind guidance and coaching, that helps you, encourages you, shows you that you're not alone, you want to shout about it from the rooftops.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what this show is all about today. My name is Will,
And I'm Karen.
and unlike Mulder and
We
Scully,
both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical.
Three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the
The
Skeptic
Skeptic
Metaphysicians. Welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. I'm Will,
And I'm Karen.
and on today's show, we have a special treat for you. I've been listening to another show called Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness for a while. Now, this is a show about spirituality that's dedicated to helping people improve their lives in all kinds of ways, and not just metaphysically. And we are lucky to have been able to coerce the host of that show to come on ours and help us understand what the heck we're doing wrong. Okay, no, she graciously offered to come on the show to chat about the lessons we all need to learn about in life. So we're thrilled to welcome Melissa Oatman to the show. Melissa, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Like I mentioned, you have this wonderful podcast that I've been listening to for a while, and you put a lot of effort into every episode. And I know that you put out a lot of content. So I guess probably the best way to begin our conversation is to ask you what prompted you to get into this space in the first place?
That's a really good question. So for me, it started when I went through what I like to call a dark night of the soul. I went through my own spiritual awakening. This was about 4 years ago. I was in my early 40s and divorced with twins who were in high school and had a failed relationship. And I had come from a toxic and abusive marriage that I'd gotten out of when my twins were just a year old. And I just felt like I kept doing the same thing over and over again. Like I was on a hamster wheel, living the same day over and over again. I thought that this is not exciting. There has to be more to life than just this. Why do I keep picking the same kind of men? What am I doing wrong? Like I'm doing something wrong. So I started searching for answers. And that's really what led me to all of this. My searching for answers led me to listening to different podcasts about spirituality because I just started questioning everything like, what is the point of life? What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? How can I make this better? Because it just really, there's a lot of things that I struggle with, and I want to know how to make it easier. So through that process, I ended up following some spiritual teachers, reading many good books. And somebody said to me, I went to a medium one time, just, because. And she said, you're supposed to be a healer. You're supposed to be doing this work. And I thought she was insane. So I laughed and thanked her for her message and went on. And then I kept doing what I was doing. And the more that I kept following this road of trying to find out more information, I was healing myself. And in healing myself, I realized that, if I could help anybody else do this with more grace and ease and faster than it took me, that would be amazing. So that's actually what led me to starting my podcast because I just wanted to, everything I would learn, I just wanted to put out there for the universe, for anyone out there listening who may be sitting there thinking like, same thing I was. What is the point of life? What's the meaning of life? Why are we here? Why is everything a struggle? And so that's kind of how the podcast started. And then I did end up taking a Reiki course. I ended up getting a coach and mentor, took a Reiki course with her, took a past life regression course with her, and other healing modalities. I took a hypnotherapy course. just as much information as I could get to help other people heal. That is what I did. And then I just started my own business and decided to start doing this on my own. And my mission has always been if I can help one person heal, it's worth it. And then I wrote my book. I actually wrote my book, I think, before I started doing the healing work. It was supposed to be like a cathartic memoir for me. And it ended up being like a self-help book that was part my memoir, but part also tips and tools for anyone who's ever been through a divorce or breakup or a loss in their life. I've had people who haven't been divorced, but they've lost a significant person in their life. And they've told me that the book was really helpful for them. And it's part humor too. My friend who edited it for me joked that I was the first person to use Karen jokes. So, but I believe humor helps us heal too. So, that's kind of the journey of how this all started. And this is what I've been doing ever since.
And let me just state for the record, you just won Karen's heart so much because she, as a Karen, really has a hard time with the Karen jokes.
I do. I'm over it.
Every time she makes a phone call, she comes and someone asks her name. She goes, "But I'm a nice Karen."
I am a nice Karen.
And see, in my book, I stated that not all Karens are that way. So replace the name with anyone you know who embodies those, characteristics that we tend to associate with the Karen jokes.
And to be honest, I have never, even as a kid, I never liked my name. So I don't really feel like I really am Karen.
Go with something else. Pick your own name.
Yeah.
To go back to what you just mentioned, Melissa, really quickly, the book, the title of the book, I find heartbreakingly beautiful. And it speaks so much about where you were at that point in time. The book is called Beautifully Broken, The
Mhm.
Spiritual Woman's Guide to Thriving After Divorce or Breakup. And I loved that when I found out that was the name of your book. I loved it because it really paints a picture that gives someone an exact idea of where you were at the moment.
Yeah, the whole idea behind the title was the concept of the Japanese pottery that when it breaks, they put it back together using the paint that's gold. So when you get finished putting all of the pieces back together, it's actually even more beautiful than it was before. And that's sort of the premise of my book is that even though you may feel like you're broken, if you allow God's light in and you allow yourself to heal, you can be made even more beautiful than you've ever been before.
Mm.
Well, something that was interesting to me that you mentioned is that you kind of went through this cycle, and there are so many people that I know that it's kind of that repeat the cycle. Bad relationship, get out, find a new one, and it's bad. Stay in it, get out, find a new one, and it's bad. Stay in it.
Yeah.
So if your book or, your podcast can help anybody shorten that cycle. I mean, I could have saved a few years getting rid of
Right.
some of the boyfriends that I cycled through. But I guess my question is, from what you have learned, is there a reason, like some sort of energy around people that makes them kind of get into this cycle, or is there a lesson that they're supposed to learn?
Yeah, absolutely. And the lesson is you have to love yourself first. A lot of people go through life and they don't love who they are, and either subconsciously or through sometimes it's overtly, parents will tell us you're not enough, or they might compare you to your sibling and say, well, your grades are not as good as your brother or sister. You could do better. And we pick up all of these subtle, I call them lies, but we pick up stories that we're not good enough, we don't have enough. And depending on how you grew up and what your attachment style was to your parents, sometimes we lack self love. And when we do that, then we tend to attract people who either also don't love themselves or who are looking to take advantage of people who have low self esteem because it's easier for them to do that. And a lot of it also has to do with your vibration. We are all energy. And so if your energy is vibrating at a very high frequency, you tend to attract better things into your life. But if you're vibrating at a low energy frequency, which if you're living a life that doesn't make you happy, probably feel very drained and tired. And, so that actually lowers your energy, then you're attracting energetically those things in too. So there are a few different components that go into the type of people we attract. But yes, the lesson is to learn to heal yourself.
Mm.
It all starts from within. Like you have to love yourself and you have to be happy with yourself before you can be happy with somebody else. So the lesson is always to go within and go back to yourself and to take care of yourself first.
That's pretty good. We're only not even 10 minutes into the show and already getting to listen. That's fantastic. It usually takes us a long time to get there, but we got right to the meat of it. Nice question, Karen.
Stick with me. See, that's my mission, is to get you there faster.
I like that. Cut to the chase.
Yeah, no, I love it. And looking at what you do, you do a lot of things. You mentioned being a Reiki practitioner, you're an intuitive healer, you're a transformational coach. You find that a lot of these things work hand in hand together, or you kind of have to choose one and go in a certain direction?
Oh no, there's a lot of people who they will get a Reiki session because Reiki can help you to restore your energy. And it just feels good to get Reiki too. It's relaxing and makes you feel good. And then they might also do a coaching session. They're not the same thing, but I use many different tools in my coaching sessions. So I like to use things like EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping. I like using hypnotherapy. So we do like little guided meditations with people. Journaling is a great tool. There are a lot of different tools that I use that I can use in a session of coaching. And there are some people who would strictly do come and get Reiki. There are people who will come and just get a reading. There's some people come just to do a past life regression. And then some people say, I want coaching and I want to include these things in the coaching session. So really each session is tailored to the person that's working with me
Hmm.
in everything I do.
And you really do. I'm looking at your website right now, at your offerings, and you really do a lot of things. You mentioned we've already talked about Reiki, talked about coaching. You also do card readings, you do past life regressions, you do guided meditations, your podcast. So I guess my question would be, how do you find the time to do all that stuff?
Sometimes it's difficult, but I feel like when something is your passion and you really love doing it, that it doesn't seem like work. It just feels like something that you get to do. And, of course, building a business takes a while. So I'm still working also as a teacher full time. And it's one of those things where sort of shifting in one direction and shifting away from another because I've felt called to really serve in the world. And of course, you serve as a teacher, you're serving people, but this is a totally different way. And I guess because I personally have been in the trenches and know what it feels like to not be able to dig your way out and feel like everything's crashing in around you, that my mission is to help as many people as I can understand that you're not alone and you can break free. You can get out, you can get help, you can feel better, you can actually live a life that you love. You don't have to stay down there in the trenches, fighting and struggling every day. Life doesn't have to be such a big struggle. We often make it a bigger struggle than it really needs to be. And that's through our thoughts and through our actions. And so when we can learn how to start changing those things, then it makes life a little bit easier for us, which is, that's what it's all about. We didn't come here to be miserable.
Mm.
And Will, you forgot she's a mother of twins. Of course, she can do all kinds of things at the same time. Are you kidding me?
What was I thinking? You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned journaling and how that can be a good tool. Now, for me, I hate journaling. Like, what is it that's so? It's like jogging. I can do it. It just takes so long.
Yeah.
Is what? Why is journaling so? Why should I try to not hate it? Like, why is that so good?
Well, and you don't have to journal if you don't like writing, pen to paper. You don't have to do it that way. The point of journaling is to get out your thoughts and your emotions. And so you can look at it because usually that's when we get an aha moment, right? Like, I'm feeling really crappy today and I don't know why I'm feeling this way. What's going on? And we can start thinking about what happened today or what's been happening in the last few weeks. And then you look at it and you go, oh, you know what? Here's what it is. I know what it is. Somebody said something to me the other day about my work and that I wasn't as smart. And that triggered a whole lifetime of me feeling like I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough. So we have all of these emotions that lie deep within us that our brains don't remember, but our bodies remember it. And, it's there. So when we do the journaling work, it usually helps us to remember those things that are deep down so we can process it and work through it. You don't have to write, though. I tell people, I have clients all the time come to me and they're like, I don't want to write. And they feel like I'm punishing them by making them write. And I get it. And I'm a teacher. My students don't like writing either. So I tell them, you don't have to write it down. You have a phone and it has a voice memo or a recorder on it. Speak into your phone. And I know people will always say, like, I don't want to hear my voice back. Well, tough. Sometimes you have to listen to it. But the point of what you're doing is not to punish yourself, it's to really get insight into what's going on in your life. And there are many different journaling prompts that you can do. I have a whole journal for self development. So if you're really wanting to get rid of limiting beliefs about yourself, maybe, you always have had trouble with money and you don't know why and you don't understand where that comes from. There are journaling prompts to help you uncover those beliefs you have about money. Maybe you always saw your parents struggle. Like me, I grew up with a mom who was a single mom. So everything was tight, right? Money was tight.
Same
And when
here.
you went to the store, yeah, it was like, no, you can't have that. Don't ask for that. So you get these messages that money's hard to come by or there's not enough to go around. And we really don't even realize that we picked that up just by growing up in the household that we did. So the journaling helps you to uncover what your beliefs actually are. And then you can, and you have to, it takes practice, work at changing those beliefs, right? Well, money's not limited. I see people all around me who have money. They're taking these nice vacations and they have great jobs. So it's not limited. I've just told myself that it is. So we have to kind of rewrite that. And I think journaling is a really great way to do that, but you don't have to write it at all. You can actually speak it out, but that's what
In your
it
head.
does. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I could do that. That I could do.
It's a
The problem I'm at shut up. It could be like forever long.
well, it's a great point. It just so happens that I've learned recently that I am a vocal processor. I need to talk about things, even out loud, just speak to myself or to someone else for me to process different things, which is why therapy works so well for me. But not a lot of people will know that this show started out as exactly that. I was speaking into my phone, processing some of the things I was going through verbally out loud, and then as a way of me to get my thoughts out into the universe, I published them as a show. I've since transitioned that to a different show, which is people aren't going to find because it became so personal and so raw that I would be embarrassed for anyone to listen to now. But really good point that Karen, you might want to look into how you process things. Maybe you're a verbal processor, or maybe journaling may not be for you, but something else might be.
I obsess. I think over and over and over and over until there's nothing left to think about.
But maybe
That's
getting
my process.
maybe to Melissa's point, if you get it out, maybe that will
Yeah.
help you to not focus on it so much. And my problem with journaling is that my brain works too fast. I
Mhm.
can't keep up with it. So speaking it verbally really helped me out a lot, a lot.
Yeah. And, as a teacher, many people have different learning styles. So you kind of have to find what works for you. And that's what's great about it is there's so many tools out there. If you find something you're like, I really don't like this. Well, you don't have to keep doing it. There are other things out there. That's the great thing about variety and choice and that, you have free will and you can try all the things you want. Some people love meditation. Some people hate it. They can't sit still for that long. And I get that too. Like a lot of people love yoga, and I've absolutely so wanted to love yoga my whole life. I've wanted to be the girl that wears the yoga pants, and, I don't love yoga. And to be a spiritual person, like, that's like a sin, right? Like, I should be burned at the stake because I don't like yoga.
I too
Per-
don't like
Yeah.
yoga.
But I like other things that involve movement. I like other ways of moving. I like doing Zumba, and for me, that is a relaxing and even though it's not slow at all, there's no slow pace about it, but for me, that is a way to relax and to move my body. But I do like guided meditation, so it's very everyone's unique, it's the way that you relate to things, and if you're sitting there forcing yourself to do yoga and you're not enjoying it, I don't really see the point of that.
Yeah, great point. My body doesn't bend in those ways, so I just decided not to. I've actually used to do Tai Chi, and that's so much more my speed than yoga. Why are you laughing at me?
Because I'm being very nice by not saying my thoughts right now.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
but there's
tell us
a lot
about
of people who love that, and that's great. Like I said, you gotta find what you really love and what resonates.
yeah. So tell us about the topics you cover on your podcast, because I've been listening to it for a while and I've found it very helpful in a lot of ways because it is a great voice in this endless sea of messages getting out there.
Mhm.
What kind of topics do you cover?
So the topics are really wide and ranging, and they're anything from how to work with your archangels to human design and what it is in a brief overview, how to forgive, how to shift your thoughts. I mean, really, for me, how I come up with the topic is I just meditate a little bit and ask the universe what message people need to hear. And that's usually how I get the individual topics that I cover. And then I have a lot of awesome guests that come on and they cover a lot of things I know nothing about, like human design. I really don't know that much about it, but I've had some awesome guests come on and talk about it. And my listeners will write to me and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about covering this topic? Or could you talk about this more?" And if I can't learn about it, if I can't go and find the information and then bring it back to them and cover it in a way that I think is going to give them what they need, I'll find a guest who can. And that way, the audience members really, it's for them. They get what they need out of it, which is just little things they can be doing every day to make their lives a little better.
See, now what you just said told me you're a good teacher. I used to be a teacher as well. And so many times someone will ask someone something and you just try to come up with an answer. But if you don't know it, you find an expert who does. And I like that. That's
Right.
wonderful.
I said I was working on that, Karen, for crying out loud.
I wasn't saying names.
Yeah, I find making things up on the spot doesn't work too well. People will call you out on that for sure.
Yeah, that whole fake it till you make it thing. I don't
Yeah.
know about that because people are, especially nowadays, they see through it a lot
Yeah.
really quickly.
Yeah, and there are a lot of information out there, but again, you also have to be careful where you get your information. As you were saying, there's a lot of people out there who don't have your best interest at heart and who are posting things that are not factual. And so you do have to be careful kind of where you get your information. And for me, I try to make my podcast a place that's sort of relaxing and informative at the same time. So we're not going to be on there talking about politics and anything that gets people's blood pressure rising, because I want people to feel better after they listen to my podcast. Not, I've listened to podcasts before where afterwards I was angry and ready to go like take on the world because I'm like, how could you say that on a podcast? and and I try to keep away from those things now at this point because it's not worth you draining your energy and getting upset. And it's like what I tell my podcast listeners. Sometimes you have to go through and do a social media cleanup too and stop following people who
Mhm.
upset you and make you want to throw your phone. Like that's not a good thing. So taking a break sometimes. And so that's why I try to make my podcast a place where when you're with me for that half hour, 45 minutes, you feel good, you're learning something new. And when you leave feeling ready to take on the world in a new way.
We've been really fortunate just to have so many great guests on the podcast. And there are, you hear about the people trying to just make a buck, and we have not experienced that, which is fantastic. And kind of like what you're saying, I mean, everybody just wants to help. Everyone that we've talked to wants to help and put that healing energy out there. Do you have any significant or impactful success stories that kind of pop in your mind of someone that you've helped kind of go through this process of breaking the cycles of the bad relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people reach out, people I don't even know who listen to the podcast. And one person told me that they were an alcoholic and they stopped drinking.
Wow.
That's pretty
Yeah.
impactful.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that. I love working with people in coaching, and that's awesome too. And yes, I've had people say to me, like, what I hear this most common phrase, honestly, that people have used when they come back to me is, you changed my life. And I didn't even expect to hear anything like that. I expected to hear like, thanks, you helped, but to hear
Right.
it like you changed my life is something that I never expected to hear from anybody. And to know that in some way I was able to help anyone is just the most fulfilling thing ever. And it's why I continue to do what I do.
Now, on the flip side, have you ever had someone on your show that kind of opened your eyes about something? We've had a lot of people that we had no idea. Like when we had the Buddhist monk on,
Mhm.
we had no idea there was such a thing as Thai Buddhist magic, right? What is that? What is that? Well, how does that work? So, have you ever had someone on your show that you thought going into it it'd be about one thing, but then it turned like a complete U-turn and you went off in a different direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned so much from my guests as much as probably my audience members have. I had a guest on one time who talked about womb healing, and I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. And she talked about how it was a powerful way to heal those inner emotional wounding that you have, because a lot of it comes from your, mother's lineage or whatever. And it was a very interesting topic. And so I looked more into that and did like a guided meditation with that and found that very, very helpful. And I also ended up getting my certification in hypnotherapy because I had someone on who was a hypnotherapist and talked about how much it can help with anxiety and with different disorders. And I thought that's something I need to learn because a lot of clients come to me with anxiety. And a lot of the anxiety, I think, is if you're especially sensitive to energy, which most people who listen to my podcast are what they consider to be empaths, who are people who are extra sensitive to energy. And if you are, just going through life can be extremely overwhelming because you're picking up not only your energy, but everyone else around you too. And so if you're around someone who has very heavy energy and then you're picking up on that, it can be very overwhelming, especially if you know how people are feeling even though they don't know how they're feeling. That can be really an overwhelming thing. And so teaching them sometimes how to shield themselves from that, like you don't have to always be tuned into every single thing that you're around. And so it's important for people to learn how to shield themselves if they're especially sensitive to energy when they go out into large crowds or, just when they don't want to be tapped into that.
There's so much about your podcast that I love that we could talk about that the entire time, but I also want to touch a little bit on the other things that you do. Usually, someone picks one modality or another. We've had hypnotherapists on the show. We've had past life regression therapists on the show. We've had card readers, tarot readers, and things like that. All the things that you do are available. Do you do them virtually or do you usually do them in person?
Yeah, I do everything virtually because that was just easier for me when I started. I All of the practice and everything that I did was virtual. All the courses were online. And so I tried both in person and virtual on my family when I was practicing. And we got the same results no matter what we did. So to me, that said, well, energy can move through anywhere. So it's same no matter where you are. So being online for me it was easier for my clients because then they could be in the comfort of their own home, didn't have to travel anywhere. And it's made it easier for them to schedule things because, so many of us are so busy that it's hard sometimes to block off some time. So
For
that
sure.
was just a convenience factor for them.
The one thing that I'm curious about though is things like hypnotherapy, past life regression, where as much as we try to make a space that is conducive to things like that, it's not always easy. I had Leora Leone, who is a very gifted, talented past life regression therapist who studied with Brian Weiss, Dr. Weiss, do a past life regression on me. We did release it as a bonus episode a while back, but I don't know if I got all of the benefits that I could have because it was difficult for me. I was sitting in my office chair. I was talking to someone across a computer. The audio was sometimes hit or miss because of our internet connections. Have you found that to be a challenge in your practices?
Every once in a while, you'll have a situation that'll happen, like if the client's internet is unstable or something happens. But for the most part, I found that it works pretty well.
Mm.
And I record their sessions too, so they can go back and watch it later. Or I even have clients who do the meditation part later. They do it again just to try to go even deeper and get something else out of it.
So you provide a recording of the session
Mhm. Yeah, any
and
session that I do, if I do coaching with you, or if I do a reading for you, or I do past life regression, or even Reiki, I record the session. And then, because in my Reiki sessions, not every Reiki practitioner does this, but at the end, I always do a 15 to 20-minute guided meditation to take you on even deeper healing.
Ah, that is key because my
Wow.
memory is awful. So that would help tremendously. Right. Right.
Well, and then if you're doing a reading too, sometimes when you're in the session with someone, you'll say, I'm getting this. Does this make sense? And they'll say no. And then they go back later and watch it like, oh, wait, yes, yes. Because when, someone's just asking you question after question, sometimes you don't think about something. That happened to me. I had a session when I was practicing doing mediumship. One of the other students that I was practicing with, she said, your grandma has a message for you. And there's something about bunnies. And I was like, yeah, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense to me. Later that afternoon, I went to my cousin's house and she had a picture of my niece on her table. And my niece was named after my grandmother. And next to it were two ceramic bunnies, and there was a ceramic plate behind her with the bunny on it. And then the frame itself said, I love you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, those are bunnies. Like, okay. So I had to validate it. Because sometimes you get things and it's like a sign that you're going to see, or, it's very difficult sometimes when you're in the session itself to think about what is somebody talking about. And then you go later and you talk to someone else and they're like, hey, don't you remember this was their nickname or this is what happened? And like, oh, yeah, okay. And then they totally validate what the person said. So that's why a recording is really great, because in the moment, you don't remember everything that's happening because you're so emotional. But then later you can go back. It's, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot they said that.
And of all of these different practices that you do, is there one that you are particularly fond of or that works better for you or you feel better doing?
I absolutely love doing readings and coaching with people. And I find that in a lot of the readings that I do, I end up doing more coaching with people anyway. It just turns that way. When I do reading, people connect to spirit in different ways. And I don't see dead people. That's not how I work. For me, it's a thought just pops into my head. And then I just blurt out whatever I get. And so that's kind of the way that I work. They'll ask me about just, can you tell me about my job or about this? And then I just start rambling and they'll say, how did you, okay, I didn't say anything. It's stuff that you can't go online and just look up about a
Mhm.
client. And I don't ever, the only thing I ever know about them is their name anyway, first name. So.
It's really interesting your choice of words because you say you blurt out something or you babble on. I mean, that these kinds of things, which are stream of consciousness kind of thought processes, that really is what it's like, right? You move your ego out of the way and just let spirit come through, and
Oh,
that's where the
yeah.
message is. Yeah.
Well, when I first started, it was long pauses and one word and long pauses. And because I kept thinking that I was just, this was my own thought. I'm just saying these things. And the more I did it, I started to write everything down and then say whatever I got. And the more practice I did with it, I don't write anything. Like, I'll write the person's first name down, like, I'm going to write things down that I get, but I never end up writing anything down because I've just like keep talking, keep talking, keep talking, and I haven't written anything down. And before I know it, it's like 15 minutes later, I'm like, I haven't written a single thing down except your name.
Kind of like this interview where I'm supposed to be taking notes and I've not taken a single note while the whole entire time we're talking.
Exactly.
Well, I'm looking at your website and you've got review after review. You've got people saying all kinds of really wonderful things about how you've helped them and how not just your show, but your coaching, everything is just, you just exude this light and this wonderful energy. If you have not listened to her podcast, I would strongly urge you to check it out because it may just speak to you as loudly and clearly as it speaks to me. It's called Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, and she is Melissa Oatman. Melissa, if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can really find everything on my website, which is just melissaoatman.com. And I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of my social media is on my website, my homepage, along with my email, which is just melissaoatman77@gmail.com. And really everything. You can get to the podcast from there. You can buy the book from there. You can purchase a session from there, read more about it, really anything. It's all on my website.
And we're going to add those links directly onto our show notes. So if you'd like to reach out to her, you can certainly go to skepticmetaphysician.com, go to Melissa's episode page, which will be called Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, and click the links directly, and it'll take you directly to her. So it makes it really simple for you. Melissa, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing of your energy with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
It was fun.
Well, thanks for coming along on this journey of discovery. We'd love to continue our conversation with you on our website or on Facebook or Instagram under @Skeptic Metaphysician or skepticmetaphysician.com. And if you're listening to this on the radio and missed anything, not to worry. All of our shows, including this one, can be found there as well. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have. That's all for now. We'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.